Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Sydney. I film cruelty-free beauty videos 3 times a week. Today's video is one that I am so excited about, but I have some housekeeping announcements before I hop into it. I took a little bit of a semi-intentional break. I went home for the weekend, and the video that I pre-filmed and ready to have upload, the footage wasn't working, and then I got home and I have so much homework, so I took a little mini break. I think I promised you guys this video on Wednesday, but it's actually going to go up on Thursday. School is just a little too crazy right now for me to pump it out like that, but I should be consistent from here on out. But anyways, you guys don't want to hear any of that nonsense. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about in today's video, and it's one that I'm so excited to film because it is a Shop My Stash for Dupes video for the new Huda Beauty Nude Obsessions palette. I'm going to insert a picture of all 3 of them right here because they are stunning, you guys. It has been a very long time since neutrals have made me take a double take, and these definitely did. I just bought her new nude palette. If you guys saw my September beauty budget update, which I can link down below. If you haven't, you guys will know that I just got the new nude palette probably 3 or 4 weeks ago at this point, and I love it, you guys. I love it so much. But when I saw these, I was like, do I want these? And at first I was like, yes, I'm definitely gonna purchase at least 1 or 2 of them. But then I'm like, wait, Sydney, you have a very limited budget, and as you guys will see in my upcoming beauty budget video, this month has not been kind to my temptations list. There are so many things that I want to spend my budget on, and the reality of it is I can't buy all of them. So I'm like, wait, let's try to dupe these. Let's film a video on it. Maybe it'll help you, maybe it'll help everyone else. So that's what we're doing today. A little information about these palettes. They are the little mini 9-pan palettes, and I believe they retail for $29, which isn't bad in my opinion. I almost wish that she would do, I mean, she does do more of the mini palettes than the big ones, but I feel like that's a pretty affordable price point. I have watched a couple reviews on these. I can link Mel Thompson's review down below because I thought she did such a fantastic job. She reviewed all 3 palettes and did some really great comparisons to not only the new nude palette but also Huda's other palettes in her line. So I will definitely link her down below. So if you guys are interested in purchasing these palettes after watching this video, go check that one out. She gives so much valuable information. But I'm gonna stop rambling on and let's hop into the dupes. So let's dive right in with this first palette. I'm going to try to go quickly through these because we do have 3 palettes to talk about, and I don't want this video to be too long. So let's dive into the first palette. So here is the little dupe palette that I created. You guys are probably looking at this and saying, Sydney, it looks nothing like the actual palette, and I kind of agree. I feel like this one is the one that I duped the worst. I'll insert a clip right here with this palette, kind of a close up, and then I'll put the Huda palette right next to it so you guys can really get a good look at it side by side. But hear me out, see the swatches. It's not perfect, but it's semi-workable as a dupe. So let's hop right into it. So this first shade you're probably looking at and you're like, there's no way that is a dupe for the shade in the Huda palette. So the one in the Huda palette is kind of a dusty purpley shade, and so I pulled out the Eclectic Beauty Costa's Hummingbird single. So you're looking at this in the pan, you're like, there's no way that's similar, but look at this swatch. I feel like this comes off much more softly than it appears in the pan, but it definitely still is more purple, and you can't get away from the fact that it's shimmery, and the one in the Huda palette is matte. This next shade, I feel like I did a better job duping. It's this beautiful kind of punchy purple shade, and to dupe that I went in with Sydney Grace Magenta Dreams. Now this one obviously has a blue shift, and I feel like the one in the palette probably doesn't, and based on the swatches I've seen, doesn't appear to, but I feel like tonally these are very similar. This next one I was like scratching my head about. I don't have any single pink shadows that are this light. I don't really own that many single pink shadows to begin with, so I had to dip into a blush, and I dipped into the Sydney Grace blush in the shade Love Story. It's just this beautiful kind of very soft pink. I feel like these are very similar color wise, but I do feel like you may have to build the Sydney Grace one up just a little bit because it is a cheek formula, and those tend to be just a little bit softer, a little less intensely pigmented. Next shade in the palette is this beautiful taupey shade. Now I was really kind of bumming when I was trying to dupe this one because I really don't own taupey shades in my collection because I don't really like taupe. I don't really wear it on my eyes. I don't think it really does anything for my eye color. So I dipped into Divina Sybil. This was the closest thing I could find. This one is definitely much more purple than the one in the palette, but it was the closest that I could get. Next up we have just a beautiful matte cream shade, and to dupe that I went in with Wiggle from the ColourPop Chasing Rainbows palette. I feel like this one's a little bit more yellow toned than the one in the palette, but a matte cream is a matte cream is a matte cream. I feel like they're kind of interchangeable in my mind in the way that I use them. This next shade in the palette was one when I saw the swatches I was just like, oh, it was so beautiful. I just it took my breath away a little bit. And it is this beautiful kind of purpley goldeny shade. I really didn't have anything quite like it in my collection, but the closest that I got was Sydney Grace The Greatest Gift. As you guys can see, this one is a beautiful duochrome, and as I'm sure you can see in the swatches, it's just stunning. It's so incredibly beautiful. The only real difference that I saw was this has more of a green shift while that one has more of a gold shift. Next up, we have a gorgeous, gorgeous copper shade, and for that I'm going to pull out one of my all-time favorite singles, and that is the shade Pitter Patter from ColourPop. This was from their All I See Is Magic palette, and I feel like this one was pretty much spot on. If I do say so myself, I feel like this one is pretty spot on. Next up, we have just kind of a nice matte beige shade, and to do that I went in with my Winky Lux Strut. This single is from the Winky Lux Kitten palette, so if you guys are looking for it, that's where it's from. But I feel like this one was pretty spot on. I feel like that's a pretty common shade in all of our collections. And then finally, we have kind of a very beautiful warm chocolatey brown. And to do that, I'm going to go in with ColourPop Realness from the ColourPop Chasing Rainbows palette. And I felt like this one was pretty darn spot on too. Alright, now let's move on to the Nude Medium palette. So here is what my little palette looks like. Once again, I'll insert on the screen a clip of it and a picture of the actual palette so you guys can kind of compare them side by side. This one's a little bit oddly shaped because one of the pans is much bigger than the others, but let's hop into it because we have a lot of shadows to go through. So the first shade in the palette is kind of this dusty, kind of taupey shade. I feel like that's how I'm going to describe a lot of the shades in these palettes. And I grabbed Teacup from ColourPop to dupe that one. This one is from the All I See Is Magic palette, and I feel like this one is just slightly lighter than that one, but for me on my fair skin, I really don't mind that at all. Next shade in the palette is this beautiful, like super intense bronzy golden shade, and to dupe that I went in with Winky Lux Cat Eye. I feel like this one is very much spot on. I feel like they have a very similar tone, and this one is so creamy metallic. You guys will see in the swatch, it's breathtakingly beautiful. Next shade in the palette is kind of a mid-tone chocolatey brown shade, so to dupe that I went in with ColourPop Realness. This one's from the Chasing Rainbows palette. I feel like this one may be just slightly darker, but I feel like you could use a light hand with it and get a very similar effect. Next shade in the palette is kind of a mauve-y shade, light mauve-y taupey shade, and to dupe that I went in with ColourPop Pretty Cruel once again. And I feel like this one is just slightly cooler. I feel like that one has just a little bit more warmth to it, but blended out on the eyes, are you really going to be able to tell the difference? Probably not. Next shade in the palette is this beautiful kind of fiery, rich copper shade. I didn't have anything quite that copper in singles, but I did grab one of my favorite copper singles, and that is the shade Pitter Patter from ColourPop. It's from the All I See Is Magic palette. This one is so beautiful. I do think that this one is a little bit lighter and not quite as rich, but I do feel like you could create very, very pretty looks with that one and kind of use it in the same function. Next up in the palette, there's a beautiful kind of cool toned rich brown, and to dupe that I went in with Winky Lux Boots. This is from their Kitten palette, I believe, and so was that beautiful gold shade that I mentioned earlier. Next, we have the Big Daddy pan, and in the palette, this is kind of a pinky mauve metallic shade, and to dupe that, I went in with Kaleido Cosmetics Diamond Foils in the shade Magna. I feel like this shade is just a little bit lighter. It's not quite as rich as that one, but I feel like, again, they would perform really, really similarly on the eyes. Next up in the palette, we have another kind of cool toned taupey shade, and to dupe that, I went in with ColourPop Chic Happens. I do feel like this one is a little bit cooler, a little bit more gray toned than the one in the palette. I feel like that one has a little bit more mauve to it, but again, blended out on the eyes, you're probably not going to see too big of a difference. And then finally, we're going to finish off the last shade in the palette with the shade Something Special from ColourPop. This is once again from the All I See Is Magic palette. This is just a beautiful, super deep, super shimmery plum shade, and I feel like it matches the one in the palette very well. Alright, you guys, so we are going to dupe the Nude Obsessions Deep palette next. So here's the little dupe palette that I created. I'll insert a clip right here of a close-up of the palette and kind of try to insert the actual palette next to it so you guys can kind of see how they really compare. I feel like this one was the one that maybe I duped the best, which was very surprising to me. This one and the medium one, I feel like I did a pretty good job on. The light one was a little shaky, but these two I felt very confident about, and I kind of fell in love with these little quads. I really don't want to take them out. I kind of want to just combine like all the singles that I used for all three of these and create like a mega Nude Obsessions palette or something like that. I think that would be so fun and so very pretty, so maybe I'll do that and show it off my Instagram. But let's get into these exact shades. So the top left shade, to dupe that, I used the shade Teacup from ColourPop. Now this is just a single from their All I See Is Magic palette, so it's a little itty bitty guy, but it's kind of just a dusty, kind of mauvey taupe shade, I would say, and I feel like this one was a pretty spot on dupe. The top middle shade is kind of this bronzy golden shade, so to dupe that, I dipped into ColourPop Save It For Later. This is also from their All I See Is Magic palette. And this one I feel like is just slightly more yellow gold than the one that's in the Huda Beauty palette. The next shade that's in the top row is a mystery single, and you guys, I tried so hard to stay away from my mystery singles because it just kind of breaks my heart when I have to do these because I can't tell you which shade these are. I inherited some singles from a friend on Instagram and not all of them were labeled, so I don't really know where this one is from, but it's kind of just a cranberry, like a deep cranberry. It's really, really beautiful, but I do feel like this one is a little bit more red than the one in the Huda palette. So now we're moving on to the second row, and the first shade in the palette is this gorgeous kind of pinky tone, and to dupe that I dipped into ColourPop 1111. This one is also from their All I See Is Magic palette, but I feel like this one is definitely lighter. That one does have a little bit more depth to it. Next shade in the palette is kind of a cool tone matte pink shade, and to dupe that I went in with ColourPop Pretty Cruel. I feel like the one in the palette is just a little bit more pink than this one, but I feel like you would get an overall similar look on the eyes. And then the last shade in that middle row is just kind of this deep, kind of metallic, deep purpley blackish shade. To dupe that I went in with ColourPop Something Special. Once again, this was also from their All I See Is Magic palette, and I feel like that duped it very, very closely. Moving on to that third row, that first shade in the row, it looks like kind of this plummy brown shade, and to dupe that I went in with ColourPop Cute Alert, which is just a gorgeous matte shade. I feel like ColourPop Cute Alert is not quite as deep and rich as the shade in the Huda palette, but you could build it up or mix it in with that black shade a little bit and get a very similar look. Next up in that row we have kind of a beautiful muted berry shade, and to dupe that I went in with ColourPop Going Steady. I feel like this one's just a hair less vibrant than the one in the Huda palette. Finally, to end that palette, we're just going to end it with a matte black, and that is the ColourPop Single in Prism. This one is from their Chasing Rainbows palette, and that's going to wrap up that last palette, you guys. Like I said, I feel like I did a pretty good job duping this one, and I was kind of surprised by how many similar tones I had in my collection. So that actually concludes my dupes, you guys. Did you find them helpful? Do you think that I duped the palettes pretty well? Honestly, I still love the look of these palettes, and I'm enjoying the Huda Beauty formula so far in my new nude palette, so I'm not sure if I'm going to rule these palettes out completely. They may be something that I throw on my Christmas list or like a birthday wish list, but for now, I don't think I'm going to purchase them. I feel like this has kind of satisfied my craving for now. Like I said, I think I am going to create like a mega nude palette, Nude Obsessions inspired palette, so I will be sure to post that on my Instagram. Also, if you guys like this look, it will be up my Instagram eventually, probably not by the time this video is going up, but make sure you guys follow me on there. I'll link it down below, so you don't miss out on this little look, because I filmed like a little date night get ready with me tutorial, and I'm so excited for it to go up. But that's gonna wrap it up for today. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on these palettes, on the dupes. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions, but that's gonna wrap it up for me today, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!